Welcome to the Unfiltered Path podcast, where we explore life's journey without the constraints of filters. In a world saturated with highlight reels, we dive deep into the true essence of individual experiences, offering listeners an uncensored glimpse into the triumphs, struggles, and transformative moments that define us. Our mission is to provide hope, inspire resilience, and remind you that every path, no matter how windy or rocky, can lead to growth and enlightenment. Join us as we navigate the uncharted territories of truth to be moved, be inspired, and discover that you're not alone on the unfiltered journey of life. Hi, everyone. My name is Danielle. I am a co-host here at the Unfiltered Path podcast. I'm also an aerialist, so I perform suspended in the air. Essentially, I'm the bird of the circus, and I'm an educator, so I help other people do it as well. And I am here with my co-host.
Hello everybody. My name is Graham Duval. I am the owner of Valued Productions. My company works to produce and implement video marketing strategies proven to make you more successful in your business, helping turn strangers into clients using content, social media, and all the digital spaces. Joined with my co-host today.
Hey everyone, it's Trinity Baker, mindset coach and motivational speaker, teaching you to harness the power of your mindset to create a beautiful life that you love and are excited to wake up to every single day. And we're here on the Unfiltered Path podcast, joined with our guest today. Lloyd, will you introduce yourself?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Lloyd. I'm the founder of Cain Business Coaching. I work predominantly with SMMEs, so that's small to medium micro-sized businesses, and I also do some career coaching alongside that. Thank you for having me on the podcast today.
Again.
Coming back.
Yes, again, of course.
Your first episode, we could have kept going with that for hours and hours and hours, so we're excited to have you back today. We have a really powerful conversation to have today.
Looking forward to it.
Yes.
Yeah, when we first come on before we start recording the podcast, we kind of have this conversation with all our guests, and it just naturally flows to the topic that we're going to have today, which is really like being that authentic self. Because Lloyd's background is a boat. And when I first saw it, I was like, Lloyd, that fits you so well because I know his story and I know how powerful that industry was in his story and where he is today. And I love to see him embracing that. So we're going to talk about that today, kind of embracing your story. Can you remind our listeners, if they haven't listened to the previous episode where we talked about this, can you remind them what that has to do with where you are today and kind of how it brought you here?
Yeah, so excuse me, my career in yachting was quite an interesting one, and it definitely took me around the world, but it also taught me a lot of valuable lessons in life, how to treat people correctly, how to motivate individuals, how to keep yourself motivated. And that obviously is a very powerful driver and motivator in what I do now as a business coach. And a lot of it just stems down to whether you're working in a company, starting your own little thing, or you're running a family. Kind of need to have a team of people around you to help you steer your career in the right direction or your boat in the right direction. And even still today, I'm very much connected with the sea. I go sailing every Saturday. Well, hopefully I try to go sailing every Saturday. And it just keeps reminding me of why I do what I do and sharing that inspiration with other people out there.
That is so cool. I've never even
Yeah.
done that once. And he's like, I'm yachting, or however you just worded that was well. I love that. What's funny, when I saw your painting, I was like, that feels like my emotions. Like, that was
Really?
the first thought I had. And then you guys like, oh yeah, it's your, what you did before and stuff like that. And that was like my reaction to the art, because obviously it's art.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
dig
I
that
feel
too.
that.
I dig that too. I
Well,
mean, they say
Yeah.
that they say that you don't learn to sail in calm seas. So as you know, when you're trying to navigate life, sometimes those challenges and those emotions and stuff are the things that get you to learn.
on
Deep.
that note, when I learned how to sail, it was the middle of winter here in Cape Town, and the sea is rough. It's cold, it's wet, it's miserable. And my whole rationale was let me go and experience this in the worst conditions. And I puked my guts out for 3 days. I was doggedly sick, and I still get seasick today. And I kept going back. I come off the water, I felt miserable. I'm like, I'm never going back to that. And then the next morning, 6 o'clock, I was there at the boat, ready to do it again, knowing I'm going to feel terrible. But the whole concept was, if I can manage this and get through it, then everything else after is going to be plain sailing. And 9 out of 10 times, that is relatively true. And so I like to have a little bit of a dramatic scene behind me, because life isn't always calm and serene, just like with business. If your business is running calmly, there's a problem. You need to start looking at something.
Yeah, but hear me out. Like, if your life is running,
Tell me there's peace, please.
if your life is running super calmly too, there is a problem, because it means you're not taking risks. Because what I see is that we think that that quality of life and really enjoying that serene, peaceful fulfillment, it's only when we're smooth sailing. And the actual happiness of life, like our purpose here, is to be able to create the peace and the harmony, like no matter what the storm or the mountain or anything. Life can literally be blowing up, air quote, around you, and you can choose to find the harmony and the fulfillment and the peace within it. That's literally what I teach, because I can't change people's circumstances. And what I know about those circumstances, they grow us. So I actually want them to go through that, because then you learn. But I'm teaching them to also learn through it, because how many people don't learn through the challenges?
Right.
Exactly. If you're not going to be able to, I mean, when we celebrate our accomplishments, we're actually celebrating that we've persevered through some sort of trauma, or we've gone through a low point. And then we do celebrate, like, yeah, I managed to get through that. And it's the same thing with having gone sailing for so many years. It's not fun to go out in rough weather, don't get me wrong, but that's when you learn how to really operate and handle the boat and handle your emotions, and overcome a fear is being put in those kind of situations. And you're going to get through it. It's not like you're going to stay in it forever. But when you come out of it, you have so much more appreciation, and you've developed in your skill level, you've developed in your confidence, and next time when a storm rolls in, you're not going to sit there like a deer in headlights and go, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? Please help save me. You can get through it. And I think the same is said for in your personal life and in your business life. If you can't persevere through those hard times, it's going to be tricky.
Most definitely. I mean, it's why you see like baseball players, when they're practicing, they either use a heavier bat than they do in gameplay, or like they'll do two bats so that when they're swinging, it's tougher to swing. And then once they get in gameplay, it's like, oh man, I've just been playing with a bat that's 3 times heavier than this, and they can swing and they knock the ball out of the park.
In my world, we have ankle weights.
Oh,
Oh, wow.
exactly.
Yeah, or like obnoxious amount of straddles that you like a routine would have 3, but we do 10 to start class, like that's just my life. But it's nice seeing it, because it's not always like my consistent emotional state, like to be a mom and just an everyday woman. So I don't always carry those like awarenesses everywhere.
Yep.
But yeah, it's been a good year with, I think, emotional intelligence and start in terms of like self regulating. I could say for myself, I feel, because I'm injured right now, and I'm at the point where I haven't been active for over 3 weeks. So I'm just generally not as happy as I was 3 weeks ago. And it's just chemical at this point. Like I don't even know how to explain it. And I'm doing really well, because I still see it as an opportunity to prepare me for a surgery I've scheduled, which was going to be very similar in my rest. And I think, honestly, I'm like kind of glad I got this buffer experience, because I think I would have kind of just been overwhelmed later in the year. Like, because it's a little bit more extreme. And I'm just kind of grateful that now I can probably emotionally cope with it far better. Yeah.
I love that you're talking about it. I think it's
Oh,
so
I have to.
I think it's so important that we talk about our challenges, because it gives other people hope too, right? Like there could be someone listening right now, Danielle, who is in the athletic industry like you, who is also injured, and they're not having this perspective. You might have been able to shift their perspective. So there's so much, like, school is life for us, and we're learning constantly what we need for our next level and our next journey. And wherever we're going, where we currently are. But then we're also giving hope to others to see life like that. And I think we're authentic about these messages, and, not saying that sometimes it doesn't take time. We have to emotionally regulate and reflect and do all the things before we start talking about some of this, traumatic events that happen in our life, really, these redirections. I think it's important that we do eventually talk about them and honor them.
Well, you're absolutely right. It's going back to what we spoke about before we started recording, which is that authentic self. And, are you putting up a mask, not talking about these issues in the hope, or burying your head in the sand in the hope that it'll just fly over, pass over, and, you'll be fine? Or are you putting away that mask and actually showing that authentic self and asking other people to help you and assist you? And it's not like we have to coddle people in cotton wool and say, oh, it's going to be okay, you'll be fine. It's really just showing up in certain situations, like, I really need help in this scenario, and there are people who are willing to help. But you don't know if you don't say anything. It's like, if a person's waving out in the ocean, are they drowning, or are they just waving at you to say hello until something else gets sent out into the universe? Then you go over and you assist them, or you're like, yeah, no, they're fine.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that was such a good point of the conversation before, was you were talking about how someone he knows felt like they lost their identity because they weren't doing their said task. And I was like, oh my God, that's like removing your identity to what you do for work. And I feel like I'm getting a mini lesson in that through this experience. And that's why I was able to say that. And I'm so glad you re-brought that up, because I'm so much more than what I do for work. And because I'm injured, I'm being more articulate with my words. I'm delegating. I'm organizing more. I'm doing like all these other things. And yeah, so I feel like I've detached, but I kind of reconnected to my job in a different way. But I'm not my job, because I love what I do. And I think that, it's been kind of nice to separate myself and be like, no, I'm Danielle, and like, this is
and it like redirects you to what you need to learn for your next level. Like, what you're learning with all of this going on is taking you to your next level, because you are delegating, you're giving opportunities to other arealists to step up where you can't step in right now. And so you're growing others, but you're stepping into what you need in this next journey, right? Like, I stepped into last month and these past couple of months, like more like office system work, like changing that, like the back office stuff, which is like not coaching people. It's not what I like to do. But I need to do that to learn to get to the next level of where I'm going to support the people I support. So it's just kind of cool when you look at these things, like basically, like, what can I get out of this? Right. What is it here for? You're maximizing, then you're not learning the same lesson over and over.
I think when you said that whole thing about losing your identity and whatnot for what you do, it made me think that this digital world that we're living in right now with AI, I think there's a lot going on with that, because people are very much connected to their work, and like, this is who I am, this is what I do, and AI coming in and like cutting down a lot of these things that like people were doing so much. And so like there's this big shift happening right now where it's like being able to embrace the efficiencies that can come, and like you said, detaching from that being you, because this like new AI thing can do some of the stuff that you may have been able to do, but like, how are you showing up to as that person to either like manage the AI system, or like get the efficiency even better because now it's being managed by a person, and like just a whole bunch of other stuff. But like, I just think there's a huge shift going on with that, and that's what made me think of.
It's
AI
really
is
interesting.
better at asking questions.
Yes.
What, like, and then on such a deeper level, I feel like that's like ironically what life is. Are you asking the right questions? Like, are we looking at it from the right point of view, kind of thing? And so that's just my input on the whole AI thing. That's why, like, one thing I will say is I'm just asking better questions. I don't know. It's been like interesting because like you're not in a situation to always ask questions. You're kind of more in a situation to do what you've been trained to do, right? And you're
Hmm.
not always generating new questions for yourself. So here comes this robot where the only way you can evolve and get what you want, like I'm trying to get a particular image that I want digital, not done by hand. And I have had to be so creative in
Right.
how I ask it questions.
Hmm.
And it's been interesting. It's just an interesting
It's
take.
it's so interesting because I mean, going back to what Graham was just saying now, where AI is coming in and it's disrupting people. Throughout history, there have been these disruptions, I believe, where we've had these high points and low points with the Industrial Revolution, for one of those, where it creates more mobility for individuals. So your identity now wasn't just as a landowner. You, as a person who worked on that land, can now actually create your own career, your own identity. And so you would
Mhm.
migrate towards the cities and go work in the factories and so on. And then, we kind of went through a period where people were having that more mobility. Then we went through a couple of troubling times. Two world wars definitely didn't help in that scenario.
Mm.
And again, we sort of then reformed our identity and going, okay, we're standing up against this evil, or we're going to fight for this freedom, and so on and so forth. And so your identity now became molded to what the national narrative was, whatever that could have been. And then after those kind of conflicts happened, it kind of went back to that individual identity. And I remember with my grandfather, he worked for a shipping company his whole life. That was his identity. And he got the Rolex watch at the end of his service, the payout. And you kind of go, well, who are you as a person? Because your whole life was committed to the company. And then I think, we went through the 80s and the 90s where we sort of try to shift away from that corporate identification. But now we're sort of falling back into it again, going, okay, well, what is my identity now with the advent of AI and this digital landscape that we're in? Because you definitely lead two different lives. There's a life online and there's a life offline. And
Yeah.
which one is the true you as an individual?
Mhm. I think it's really important to when you look at creating or accepting or attracting new opportunities, right, for the future career, for example, you take someone who is really dedicated to a company or organization and they're like, okay, where is my next level of growth? Like I might feel stuck here. There might not be that next level of growth. Maybe there's not a higher position or whatever it might be. The first question we ask is like, what job postings are there currently? Who is currently in the positions around us that we could take, right? We're like searching for this opportunity instead of actually stepping into the qualities, characteristics, who we truly are, identifying
Hmm.
those into those and then attracting a new opportunity. Literally have a client that I'm doing this with. She had previously worked with another coach who was kind of career coaching her in a way. And it was like trying to identify the position when like we don't need to identify a position. We need to identify who we are, confidently step into that even more every day. That builds your self-worth. And then you radiate and you attract what your next opportunity is.
Hmm.
Uh, because if you go about the other way, you're still trying to fit a mold somewhere. We're not meant to fit a mold. We're meant to attract the next opportunity to make an impact, whatever that is. That's where you see people automatically and naturally shift careers when they're like, I don't know what other industry I'd want to work in. Just to let it attract you, right? Like I certainly did not look to the personal development world to work into it. I was in the nursing industry, but this is what I attracted. And the same thing with all of you here, which is so amazing. We didn't make these opportunities. We attracted them when we stepped into who we were in our skills. Like every single one of you, Graham, you are freaking
Hmm.
amazing at what you do, all the qualities that you do. Like you had those before you created the business,
Right.
before you went to school for it. And that's true for everyone here. And probably every single one of our listeners, really, which is cool. I think it just confirms that we don't need to focus on the role that we play. We need to focus on how we're showing up in that moment, regardless of the role. That's literally what I teach, because then you feel that fulfillment as someone who is committed, who is clear, who is courageous, who is whatever that characteristic of you is. And then when a career or relationship is taken away from you, you're not lost. You still know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's very, very relevant. I think, also building on top of that is in society, we're sort of molded into believing that this is the recipe, follow the recipe, and life will be successful. The recipe doesn't work for everybody. I'm definitely one of those individuals where, my parents were like, well, when you finish school, Lloyd, you're going to go to university and study. I'm going, well, we don't have a lot of money. I don't know what I want to study. So the recipe's not fitting. It's not working. And then an opportunity came up to go to the Middle East and volunteer for a couple of years. And then the boats came up as an opportunity. And all of a sudden, I was able to make my own recipe, create my own identity, and not be forced into this mold, which I think a lot of people unfortunately do get forced into, either through socio-economic circumstances or through bad choices that they've made. And now they just have to make it work.
But then I think the where the real work comes in is if you do find yourself forced into that position, is how do you make that your own? You know what I mean? Whether that's like either like stepping into like what you were saying, Trinity, where it's like attracting new stuff, which may and lead you out of that position, or are you embracing this way that the life kind of forced you into and like making it your own, where now you're able to like show your personality within this like construct of what you're doing, whatever it is, and then again, like detaching yourself from that thing, either way. And that's the tough part for
What
sure.
Yeah.
what you did through your opportunities with the boats, Lloyd, is really like if you look at who you showed up in with all those opportunities, you were building the skills and the characteristics of who you are. You weren't building what you were doing. And that's
Yeah.
then what attracted the next opportunities and why you are where you are today, right? Like Graham, when you were doing music, you were, I know this was a total different life for you, life chapter, but like you were using the skills and the characteristics and you were building those for what you do today. Danielle, the circus work, like everything that you did down in Florida was building who you are for what you do today. And that's like the skills that we use in the work that we do, but it's also the skills that we need as business owners, right? Like, we are challenged with a lot of the things that we have to do as business owners or we get to do today as business owners. And it's just cool. So then it's like confirmation that I got I got what it takes. If I'm here, I've got what it takes. And my history and my past, I can be authentic with that because that's what made me who I am today, who has what it takes. Whole next level. Whole next level.
Definitely building on top of that, sorry, Trinity, is, for me, when it came to the yachting industry, I had to find something in the industry that would keep me motivated. There has to be intrinsic motivation to be that authentic self. If you have an external motivation, it's going to be very short-lived. So a lot of people who go into the yachting industry, and I think also when people are looking for the services of a business coach, it becomes very transactional. You make a lot of money on the boats, so I'm motivated by the money. But that doesn't mean you're going to stay there and you're going to enjoy the work. And for me, I mean, look, working on the boats is kind of simple. It's easy to learn how to scrub decks, polish stainless, and stuff like that. Highly, highly boring. So what are the other motivators that's keeping you there? And for me, it was that opportunity to travel around the world and to see locations that other people could only dream about or see on a postcard. And that's what motivates me to stay on the boats. And then, getting off the boats, now having to find a new career and sort of kind of redefine myself. I find when I'm working with clients, it's also what is that intrinsic motivation in the job that you're doing? Yes, you may hate the work that you're doing, but maybe there's something else that you're doing in that job that is benefiting another person and helping them get through something. I'm always reminded of the story with my mom, who was also a nurse, and she hated working in the general wards. Absolutely hated it. And then one night they called her up and said, no, we need you in the ICU to come and do something. And that was a whole different world for her. She loved it. And that has what's led her on her journey to now educating other nurses and having worked overseas for almost 2 decades, all because she had that opportunity to look at something else in the industry that she's in and go, I like that. And I think that's when people find those opportunities is when they don't lock themselves off. But at the same time, you need to open yourself up to actually looking for that. And it can be hard when you're in a what you perceive to be a dead end job, because you've got to pay the bills, you've got responsibilities, so you just push through.
Mm.
I like what you said, what you perceive to be a dead end job. I think that's the key language right there of like your perception of it. Because it
Yeah,
could be the stepping stone to that thing that's
Yeah.
greater. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
exactly.
I've
It's
never
something
started
that
any job like that though. I always show up. I'm gonna
Oh
be
yeah,
honest. Like I
same
will
here.
say that's like a thing for me where I've had bank jobs. I was in the cell phone industry a long, long time. In fact, before I was an aerialist, I was a cell phone lady. Like people
oh
would wait
wow.
to talk to me. Yeah. So I always showed up for myself. And then when I went to business school, I had a 4.0, but I left to join the circus. So it's just really interesting. Like I feel like I always show up for myself. When it comes to work, I was just talking to my kids about how they were like, you make the best pizza. I'm like, oh my God, for like 3 weeks, I made pizzas while I was pregnant with you, Ja, and I was on my feet making pizzas. I said, so I can make great pizzas now because I was making pizzas for 3 weeks. Or like I worked at a laundromat and I am like a laundry folding ninja and I find peace in an activity I have to do a lot of. And because there's three of
Mhm.
us. So I don't know. I feel like I've always kind of had that perception though for myself. I feel grateful because it's helpful.
It's it's super unique, and it's not that everybody has that because they look at work being a transaction. I need to
Mm.
work in order to survive, in order to live. And I know there's that cliche, the moment you find something that you love doing, you never work a day in your life. I would add on to that, be careful that you don't hate then doing what you love doing, because that can
Mhm.
equally happen in loads where, yeah, I love working on boats and I love coaching. The one thing I hate about coaching is the admin that I've got to do. Hate that part. And I don't want to get to a point where I'm doing more admin than coaching and then hate coaching at the end of the day. So it's also finding that balance between, yeah, I love doing this, and then okay, maybe it's becoming a little bit too much, because there are people who run into those kind of scenarios with like, yeah, I'm a great baker and I've started my own little baking business and I'm pumping out cakes Mondays to Mondays and loving it. And then one day they're just like, I'm done. And I had that situation with a client up in Johannesburg again, where they were a chef and they were running a restaurant. They love chefing, but then they got to a point where they just hated doing what they're doing. So they transitioned into sort of doing catering for the film industry, which is a little bit still in their industry, but it's different in regards to the stress load. And it's kind of resetting them to have a passion for food again. Because whilst they were working in the restaurant, they just lost that passion entirely. And it was tragic to see that happen.
It happens
Yeah.
a lot.
That's yeah,
Yeah.
that's a thing for me that like I mean, I was the whole music thing that I was in for a long time was like I was doing it for fun, but still trying to like make it something. But then when I officially like went back to school to be like, oh, how am I going to actually make this like a thing? When I got done school to like go into potentially music business and like get into the actual, I was like, you know what? I don't know. I think there might be something else here because there is that possibility of like when this becomes something that like you have to have that right mindset and for me clearly it wasn't like I wasn't at a point to really like dive into that, but like yeah, that's just such a thing that I think about all the time. Like if I had gone into music, like what would that have done to my passion for it? Because I still play in bands and stuff, but it doesn't have that same like, oh, I need this to pay the bills. You know what I mean? So yeah.
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 Oh, it's so true the opposite way. So let me explain the opposite way. I created a business that is my passion and I love it and I will never get sick of it ever, 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 ever. It's amazing. But what it allowed me to do was then step into nursing in a way that I wanted to instead of the way I had to make the bills, make ends meet, things like that. So I stepped into doing things in nursing that I loved, so it worked the opposite for me, right? I mean, it kind of did that for you, music too, Graham. Like you created your
Mm-hmm.
so then music could be this fun thing.
Exactly.
You still might make
Exactly.
some, right? But
Oh, yeah, exactly.
not
Exactly.
like this obligation.
Right.
And I think like just following your intuition, like when you have those thoughts, asking and dissecting them, not saying that, yes, I need to follow that. No, I don't need to follow that. But that's where like that self-reflection is so important. We are not alone. We're not creating our lives. Like this is where the time that you schedule into your day and you are very intentional about whatever it might look like for you. Some people it's meditation, some people it's journaling, some people it's just sitting there in silence. It can be anything, but as long as you're offering time to be silent and feel the guidance and listen to your intuition, like you can dissect those redirections and really like harness the power of them. Instead of just like spending weeks thinking about how you're having this thought and you don't know what to do and you don't know what decision to make. And it's like, it's such a waste of your energy, first of all. Talk about exhausted. Just make the time to sit down and ask for guidance. And again, whatever that looks like for you. Like some people it's church and praying. Some people and it can look like anything. And it doesn't have to look the same every day as long as you're doing it.
I think also there, it's a case of if you feel like you're in that kind of situation, then you really need to reassess what's going on. And, maybe something's happened in your family, something's happened at work that has created this instability. And that's kind of when you start going through a storm. You see it coming. You kind of know what you need to do to get through it, but sometimes you don't have everything to get through it, or you get really nervous. And I mean, I've experienced that on the water where we're going into a big storm and I'm not feeling comfortable, but the training and the skill set is there to get through it. However, for a person who's never gone sailing before and you go out in rough weather, it is incredibly traumatizing for them and puts them off it. But I think also, if you want to get through those low points in your life, and like you say, Trinity, it's just make that time for yourself, quiet the noise, but also at the same time, have the courage to stand up and ask somebody to help you. Because it's all very well that you think you can go through it. And, sometimes we're the worst critics to ourselves. And we don't ask other people for a little bit of input and insights and say, hey, look, I'm really struggling through this situation. What are your thoughts on it? If we're too much in our heads, we won't get through the storm that we're currently dealing with.
It's important
Definitely.
to have it's important to have someone that brings you out of your head for a hot second. Yeah, that's where like support comes in, whether that's mentor, coaching, friend, family, right? Like just allow someone to get you out of your head for a quick second. It doesn't mean you have to take their advice, but everyone's perspective is different. And it's cool to just be open to that because then you might be able to see some things that you're not necessarily able to see when you're in your head.
Exactly. And again, it's just being authentic to who you are. It's giving yourself that opportunity to not put up those barriers and have that mask up that so many of us have gone through at some point in our lives. And stripping that away and then saying, hey, this is who I truly am. And when another person who is authentic sees that authenticity in yourself, and we're throwing big words around here, but actually at the end of the day, it's just when I am seen and valued, I see and value other people.
Definitely.
And that's where we really help each other.
I think too that like what you just said, when I'm seen and valued, I see and value other people. I think there's a piece to that too, where it's like you need to see and value yourself first before you can even see and value other people who can then see and value you. It's just like an extra layer to that. And then also too, like what I've been experiencing is like when you do kind of strip away that mask and start stepping into the authentic self, I feel like there's sometimes whatever you want to call it, the ego or the whatever, wants to put another mask on that next layer below that you just stripped away. And so then now you got to work to strip that away. And so it's like a constantly peeling these things. And like maybe one of the times you're like half wearing a mask, like the Phantom of the Opera, where it's like half on and like half off. You know what I mean? So like there's just so many layers to it.
It is cool. And every single layer is where you heal and grow, right?
Right.
Every single time you pull back a layer, that's when I go out to Colorado, one of the women coming out of human trafficking said, like, I thought I healed from this. And then a layer got pulled off, and then she was like, shit, I didn't heal from this. But that's actually not true. She did a lot of healing for that layer. And then we got to pull another one back, and we got to do we got to do more healing. But that's growth. So instead of like pulling it back and then it gets smaller, it's almost like you're adding it on and you get bigger, because then you grow and you're healing, and you're just literally developing yourself through every single time you pull back that layer, and you're willing to actually do the work, because a lot of us are masking those layers. And that's not, stay stuck right where we are if we try to mask the layers, but we do it because it's really uncomfortable. You know, this stuff is really uncomfortable to dissect and reflect and grow and heal, but that's what we're here for. And if you have the perspective that if you don't do it in this lifetime, you're going to have to do it in the next lifetime, and the next lifetime could be even more beautiful if you just do it in this lifetime, it gets you a little more motivated, because I don't want to healing and the growing out for as long as I possibly can. Like, I want to enjoy the benefits of this eventually. So let's just get it done now.
I've been working with a client at the moment where they're kind of experiencing this with a teammate of theirs. So they're a senior level executive and they're managing a team, and they've got somebody on board who previously was in a different role and really good at what they did and helped drive a project in a positive direction. And now they've been promoted to this new position, and the workload is not matching up to what they used to do, which tells me as his coach, there's something else going on here. Does this person feel overwhelmed, imposter syndrome? You know, what kind of mask are they putting on? Because when they speak to him, he's like, yeah, no, everything's cool. I'm managing, I'm coping, but you're not meeting the performance that we need for you to get this project through. They're putting on a mask. And the coaching has been like, okay, now you need to go and coach this person. You need to listen to them and hear what's going on there and kind of pull that layer back and really drive down to what is the core issue going on here, and then help build them up. So it's resetting a relationship and it's rebuilding that relationship in that workspace. And I know there's a lot of people both in their private lives and at work where that kind of situation is happening. And who do you go and talk to, essentially? Or are your managers really there to care about you at the end of the day? Do they, it's not just about getting the task done, it's also about managing people's expectations. And if we can't show up authentically or be somewhat authentic at work, then we're going to have this miscommunication and worse things are going to happen as a result.
Yeah. That's so important.
Definitely.
Communication is my goal of the year.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
A lot of it's like interpersonal. A lot of it's like, my own expectations out of people. And then I think communication is something I've never felt seen or heard. Based off of like significant trauma as a child, I never felt like I really had a voice. And it's interesting because like most performers are kind of introverts on a level. And so while I've had a voice physically, most people in settings want me to be quiet. She can't possibly be an athlete and lead. She couldn't possibly be smart and funny too. Like that can't be what you get to be. And I feel like on some level, I'm always given people in my life that will try to dim my voice. So it's interesting that I want to have, feel confident speaking. Reading to people is another thing that's just like a whole other level. But communications, like on an interpersonal level, is really the goal. Yeah, that's like my 2025. Like that's the theme in every layer of it.
I love that. I would challenge you that as you are given someone in a situation, every single time you step into that confidence and you speak up and you communicate and you set boundaries, basically every time you feel like someone's trying to dim you and you shine anyway, recognize that that's bringing you closer to getting people like that out, and you no longer welcome those type of people anymore. Like you're setting an energetic boundary, no longer welcome those people anymore. If you learn from them every single time and you recognize that growth, that like, hey, you know what? I just shined when they were trying to, completely cover me up. Recognize that. And then you're attracting different, you're shifting that. So then you're no longer attracting those people anymore. That's a belief that step into as you're doing the work, because you don't want to do the work and then continue to attract these people.
Right. And that's what starts
Yeah.
peeling back that layer of things, and then you get to the next layer, and it's just all about that growth. And so like I hope that our listeners have kind of taken some inspiration from that, you know, especially like what you were saying, Danielle, about interpersonal communication. And like maybe this podcast can help with someone's interpersonal communication to themselves so that they can start stripping away some of those layers and see some growth. And as you all know who are listening, like feel free to reach out anytime. We're always here for questions, and we're happy to address any questions on the podcast. And Lloyd, I appreciate you joining us again today. It's so good to see you. Again, my name is Graham. I'm owner of Valued Productions. You can find me online at valuedproductions.com. That's VALUD productions.com. And same with social media at Valued Productions. Joined with my co-host today.
Hey everyone, Trinity Baker, mindset coach and motivational speaker. If you are listening to this podcast and you are like, all right, I'm ready to explore my identity, step out of identifying myself as the roles that I play, and I'm ready to peel back those layers and actually heal and grow, I am your person for that. It's literally what I do, so that I can teach people how to live this fulfilled and joyous life that we are so blessed to live. And I'm one of your co-hosts here. You can find me at thetrinitybaker.com or on your favorite social media platform. Miss Danielle.
Hi everyone, my name is Danielle. I'm the owner of Ariel Jade. You can find me on arieljade.com. That's Ariel like Ariel View versus the princess. You can also find me on most platforms as well. I lead with motherhood, athleticism, and an artistic twist. And we are here with our guest today.
Thank you, everybody. My name is Lloyd, owner of Cain Business Coaching. Sorry, I said Cain Foundation there for a moment. I was thinking of a NPO I used to work with. And yeah, I'm a business coach. You can find me on LinkedIn, or you can reach me directly, lloyd@cainbusinesscoaching.com. That's all one word, Cain Business Coaching. And yeah, again, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I hope your listeners have found inspiration from today. And again, if anybody ever wants to talk to me personally about business coaching, just drop me an email.
Yes, definitely reach out to Lloyd if you need any help with that. He will get you taken care of. And make sure that you go follow the Unfiltered Path podcast, where all your podcasts are heard on YouTube. Hit the notification bell so that you're notified every week when a new episode comes out. And thank you for listening, and we'll see you all next week on the Unfiltered Path podcast.